Welcome and thank you so much for coming to today's class, Keeping a Digital Cookbook. If you end up having any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll check at the end and we'll go over them. So first I want to share that the Digital Literacy Lab is open again. You can book an appointment by calling the lab or by sending an email to dll@tulsalibrary.org. So you're able to come in again and use our digitization equipment and also take on your own projects and use our softwares here. So I'm really excited that people are able to come back in. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. If you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to call or send me an email. But today we're talking about keeping a digital cookbook. And a digital cookbook is a single customizable document for organizing, recording, and creating recipes. And you can do a lot with a digital cookbook. It's very similar to a usual cookbook that's in print, stores your recipes, it has some stories, tells you about the history of a recipe. But what's great about a digital cookbook is that you can really make it what you want it to be. And we're going to be using Google Slides today to make a cookbook, but you could do this on PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, and there's other online programs that let you do very similar things, but I'm focusing on Google because it has, in my opinion, some of the best sharing features. And I think that's what's really great about a digital cookbook is that you can share this with people so easy and collaborate, creating recipes, commenting on other items that people have baked or cooked. And so we're going to be talking about creating a digital cookbook from scratch. So making your own template and customizing your cookbook to be what you want it to be. And also I'm going to show you how to use free templates online if maybe you don't want to put in, if you don't want to spend the time making your own cookbook completely from scratch. Some of the pros of making your own from scratch are that it is so easy to customize. So I know some people do this and they have review sections for people to comment how they altered recipes or how they liked dishes, what they would do differently, what they would pair that item with on a menu. But it is more time consuming and it can be difficult if you're not super familiar with using Google Slides. But hopefully after today, you'll feel really comfortable enough to make your own. So this is a cookbook that I've put together just for demonstration purposes for this class. And I'll be sharing this with everyone when I send out the video recording of the class as well. This is just a little about the cookbook, kind of talking about what I just spoke on, what a digital cookbook is and what you can do with it. I will also link a template of this template here in this green box. And here we have Buddy Bookworm. He's ready to start cooking just like we are today. So to begin, I'm just going to go over some basic options for formatting your cookbook. Something that I found really useful when making this cookbook was changing the size of the pages. You may notice that this doesn't look like a usual PowerPoint with the slide being more of a horizontally laying rectangle. I changed the page settings by going to File and then Page Setup. And when you select this, you can choose custom sizes. And I made mine an 8x10. So when I print this, it'll print full sheets of paper. But some people like to have recipe boxes and those kind of print on index cards. And so you could just easily change that. Index cards are 5x3. And then it'll apply that size to all the pages. You'll see it kind of makes these slides look a little odd because they are meant for an 8x10. But I'll just undo that real quick. That's something to keep in mind when you're starting it. So if you want to instead have recipe note cards, you can just change the size to the 5x3 and then it'll print out correctly. Another thing when making your cookbook are how you can view it on the computer. And I think this is something that It's really simple. That can make it easier, the process of creating the cookbook much easier. I have mine set to fit view, and that lets me see the full page all at once, which is how I like to work. But sometimes people like to have it smaller just to kind of get a bigger picture of what they're working on. Or some people like to work closer just because the text is larger, it's easy to see the details. But you can change the zoom by either going to view, zoom, and selecting your options here, or you can use this magnifying glass icon and choose your view there. Other than that, another part of making a cookbook that you'll be doing a lot of are inserting shapes and text box. And this is just a nice skill to have. Sorry, I'm gonna fix the view real quick. To add in where you want text, where you want shapes, where you want pictures. And it's really easy. You can either go to insert and shape and do this here, or I like to use the quick toolbar right here. And so I'm going to just insert a heart real quick, and you select the shape you want. I selected a heart, and then selected it twice. You click and drag and it makes that shape, and you'll see that like you can make a really squished heart, a really narrow one, but if you really want it to be proportionate, you can hold the shift key on your keyboard and move it, and it'll keep the proportions correct. And then when you're ready, you just release it, and then you can still make any changes you need. If you wanted to add text to this, instead of adding a separate text box, while you have the shape selected, you can just click this text box icon, and you can write what you want to. I'm gonna write, I love food. That's why we're all here today. And then you have the shape and text box already in your document. And I'm going to show a few more ways to customize and change what's in your document with this quick toolbar. You can change the color of a shape by selecting this icon. I'm going to make this text box green. You can also change the outline of a shape, and you can change the thickness with the border weight. Sorry, you can change the color over here. I'm going to make this outline a dark green. If you want to have patterns for your lines, I think this can be really fun depending on the shape. It can just make your cookbook look really cute. You can do that by selecting this, and there's several different patterns you can use. You can select the weight of your border with this icon, and you can add some more emphasis to certain parts. Here you're able to select your text. I like to stick to pretty basic and neutral fonts just because it's easier for me to read, but I think you can have a lot of fun with fonts when creating your cookbook, especially if you like have a theme that you're going with. Like I'm a fan of this typewriter theme. And you can also change the text size here by making it smaller and larger. You can bold text with this button. You can also italicize text. I'm sure most people are familiar with this. I just want to make sure you know how to do it on Google Slides. This is how you can underline text, and you can also change your text color, which is something I'm a big fan of. I like to use a lot of colors. You'll see throughout this, I'm using different shades of green. And you can also highlight your text as well. And those are kind of just some basic formatting options for creating your cookbook. I also have this quick guide that you'll be able to go back to, and it's about inserting images. Images are my favorite part of the cookbook. I have already saved photos of the food that I've made into Google Photos just for easy inserting. However, you can upload photos from your computer, search them online, save them on Google Photos or Google Drive, or you can even use your webcam. And so I'm going to insert these fried green tomatoes that I made. And when you insert it, it'll insert it as a large image, but you can just click and drag to resize, similar to how we did the shapes. And some important things that you can do with images are you can crop them, and you do that by selecting this button. And then you can click and drag, make the image larger, and then this black border is how you can crop it. Another way you can do this is by double clicking on an image, and that'll immediately bring up the cropping options. Something that I think is really fun for the cookbook is that you can actually crop images into shapes. So if I love fried green tomatoes, so I can click on this heart and it'll immediately put it into this heart shape. I can reposition it if I want it to be a little bit more a different shape of heart. I can click and drag as I would a normal shape. And so that's something that you can insert. You can also do those same customizing options that we discussed a second ago by adding borders, changing the colors, and it's just really whatever you want when it comes to making the cookbook. So those are important actions you'll need to know when making a cookbook by scratch. I think with those kind of basic functions, you'll be able to get what you need into your cookbook online. But if you didn't want to start from scratch, you can use templates online. And I have those linked here. You'll be able to access it. I use slidesgo.com. And I just search recipes or cookbook, and it'll bring up free slides. And to make sure they're free, just select free under license. This is one that I have made an example with just because I thought it was really cute. And so I downloaded it, and I used those same features of replacing images and cropping them to make this cookbook and put my recipes into it. Doesn't this look so good? And so that's one place that I would use to access templates if you don't want to start from scratch. But now that we've gone over the skills, let's start creating a few pages as we move forward. So I'm going to create a table of contents for this cookbook. And what's really neat about Google Slides is that you can link slides and link to websites really easily. So I'm going to create a table of contents. So I'm going to have about this cookbook. And I want to link to this slide that we've already discussed. And so how we'll do this is that we highlight the text that we want to link. And there's a few options. You can right click and press link, and then you have the option to link. You can press Control K, or you can click this link button on the quick toolbar. And Google will automatically pull up recommended slides, either in this slideshow or in others. I always click on slides in this presentation to make sure I'm selecting the right slide to link to. And you'll see slide 2 about this cookbook. And this is slide 2, and it took the heading from the top of the page. And then I'll select it, and now this text is linked to that slide. But I don't want it to be blue and underlined. I can still customize it to look how I want it to. I want this in green, and I don't want it underlined. But now when I'm at the table of contents and I want to go back to this, I don't have to scroll and search. I can just click on it and it'll take me there. I think this is really useful when making section titles. This is just kind of a basic section title page. And I made it by changing the background to just an image. And to do this, you just select background on your slide. And I uploaded this from the computer. But you can use photos from Google to change the background. Let's use this one. And so then you have the background that you want. I think that a nice way to section off the cookbook is by like meal types. So I would put like dinner dishes, breakfast food, desserts, and honestly, a cookbook I made would all be desserts. But you can create these links. I'll have section title page. And then when you link it, it's slide 6. And then I don't want it underlined, and I want it dark green. And when I'm presenting it, I can click on it and it'll take me right to it. So again, as you're building this cookbook, you don't have to scroll through every recipe. you can quickly find it by creating a table of contents that's linked to it. Another thing that's really neat about using Google Slides when it comes to making your cookbook is this notes section here at the bottom. I use the notes section to keep track of where my recipes are coming from. So I pull a lot of recipes from Pinterest and online, and I'll just drop that link into this notes section so I never lose it. So if I make something and someone wants access to it, I can just send them the link. I can remember where I got it from, or I read a lot of cookbooks and I'll put the title of the cookbook in the notes so I remember where I can go back to find the original recipe. So we covered section titles and organizing. How I approach making a cookbook is I make templates that I can use over and over. So this is just a template I've made for how I would like my recipe to look. Here's an example of it filled out with a Hungarian walnut roll that I made that was really good. So you'll see that all I did was copy and pasted the ingredients into this section and then the steps into this section. And then to insert the image, I just selected this placeholder, replace image, went to photos, and I added in my photo, and it immediately replaces it how I wanted, and the size I wanted, and the shape that I wanted it in. And I have, when you get the templates after this class, you'll see these comments just as reminders as to how certain actions were done. So I'm going to create a recipe slide right now with everyone here, and I'm going to use this one just because the recipe I'm using is kind of short, and I think that the picture is more fun than the words. So I have the template slide selected, and how I like to make copies of it is I right click on the slide and I press duplicate slide, and it immediately makes an exact copy. And so we're going to make a recipe slide for a green omelet. I'm going to go ahead and insert my image from the green omelet I made. You can see it was a delicious breakfast, and I'm going to type in the recipe name. And I'm here, this is where I got the recipe from. So I'm going to take that link, I just copied it, and then I'm going to the notes section of the document, and I'm just pasting it there. So in the future, I can just click and it'll take me straight back to this recipe. But to put it into my cookbook, I'm going to highlight this and copy it. And something that's really makes the cookbook easier, if you've ever copy and pasted a recipe online into a Word document, you'll see that it gets kind of messy. A way to avoid that is to paste without formatting. And so you can do that by right-clicking and selecting this, or using the function Control-Shift-V. And it immediately pastes it, and it removes the formatting from the website. So I'll just show you what it would have looked like if I had just pasted with the formatting. You'll see that it's highlighted in white, the links are still there, and it just doesn't look that great. So that's why I suggest using Control-Shift-V to paste without formatting. And then we have our ingredients listed there, ready to go. And I'm going to repeat the same process with the instructions, using Control-C on the keyboard to copy, and then Control-Shift-V to insert it without formatting. And you'll see it added this extra number. You can just delete that. And so then we have our recipe here ready to go. And if I want to add this to my table of contents, I'll just go back to the page, and I'm going to type green omelet. Then I highlight it, click the link button, slides here. What slide was it? Slide 10. And now whenever I'm looking at my table of contents, I can click on it. Slide 10 will take me directly to green omelet, which I highly recommend if you're looking to change up what you're eating for breakfast. All right, so now I'm going to talk about some organization options. We already talked about the section titles and how you can create these custom dividers throughout your cookbook. And you really are able to do whatever you like with this. My roommate, she does something similar with her family. Her family lives in a different time zone on the East Coast. And so in cooking is such a big part of how they spend time together. So they've been keeping a digital cookbook together where they all collaborate and share, and they leave reviews and comments in the notes, or you can comment and highlight on the actual recipe by clicking this comment button, and you'll say, I used 4 eggs and it was great, because the more eggs, the better. And so people can kind of leave their remarks there at a time that's convenient for them. And you're able to kind of see how other people have enjoyed the recipes that you've been cooking, even if you aren't able to be together. You can still collaborate and customize your cookbook to how you like. I'm a big fan of having a whole review page where everybody has a section and they write their comments on a dish or a meal and how they enjoyed it. But it really is, you can add whatever you like to your cookbook and do whatever you can do on Google Slides to make the cookbook work for you. But to reorganize your slides, it's really easy. You can just click and drag and move the slides. So here I'm moving this first template page that I made below the example slide. And what's really neat is that when you do this, anything that's linked in your table of contents, it's automatically going to adjust so that you go directly to that page again. You don't have to do relinks. Now I'm going to talk about how you can share your cookbook, since I've mentioned it so much. Google Slides has a lot of sharing capabilities, and you do this by selecting this button right here. And you'll see this is the Digital Literacy Lab's Gmail account, and I am the owner of this cookbook. But if I wanted to share this with someone, there are a few options that are important to know the difference between. First, restricted access allows you more control of who's having access to this document. So only people with this specific link will be able to access this document. I would send this out if you just wanted to have 1 or 2 collaborators. I would just send them this link directly rather than posting it online. But if you want to have more open access to it, it's important to know the difference between some of these permissions. So right now, anyone with this link will be able to edit this document. They can make changes, they can add things, they can remove it, which is great. But if you're posting this link onto Facebook or something, that doesn't really protect your document, because anyone who found this link online would be able to make changes and then potentially delete anything that you've worked on. To prevent this, if you're posting the link publicly, you can just make it where everyone who has the link is a viewer. This way, they would only be able to see the document. They would not be able to make any changes, but they would have access to the information that's on the document. Another option is to just make people commenters. And they, like I showed a second ago, would just be able to click on something and add a comment and be like, wow, this is great. And so then you still have options to collaborate, but your document is protected from unwanted changes. So those are the sharing capabilities with the cookbook. I think it's really great because a lot of what this Digital Literacy Lab here at the library is trying to do is preserve forms of information that are quickly becoming somewhat outdated. And I think so many families have cookbooks that they pass down or just my family itself has like notebooks full of recipes that we've been keeping and using, and they get dirty because you're cooking in the kitchen. Only one person can have them on a time, and it's difficult to share it. So if you're able to put these online, it's in a format that's easily able to be shared and preserved. And so you can still have those physical copies, but then you have something that more people have access to and you can interact with more easily. Another fun thing about a digital cookbook is that it's really easy to use it to make the process of cooking and baking easier, especially on Google Slides, because you can interact with Google Keep. Google Keep is kind of like your refrigerator where you keep all your notes at. And it's this icon right here that's a little light bulb. So you'll see I have some recipes I found when browsing saved into Google Keep. And let's say I wanted to add these in. I'm going to duplicate this template and so I can add in my new recipe. And then you just click the 3 dots here and it'll say add to slide, and it'll immediately import that slide and text into this document. And so there's links in this that I would erase, but that information is there. I'm going to delete this slide real quick. Something else you can do with Google Keep is make an easier grocery list. So if I wanted to make this peach upside down cake again, but I didn't, and I needed all these ingredients for groceries, but I didn't want to write them out, I could highlight them, right click, save to keep, and it immediately has this checklist of all the ingredients I need. And you can open this on your phone if you have the Google Keep app, which most Android devices do, and it's really easy to get on Apple devices. And then you're able to just check off what you have in your basket at the grocery store to make sure that your recipe, you have everything to make your recipe. And so that's kind of the basics for creating the cookbook. But I want to share some resources that the library has that might help you find inspiration for your cookbook, find recipes, and kind of look at how you find what you want to cook and bake in a different way. Again, this will all be on the template that I'm sending out to you, so you don't have to write anything down. You have access to all of these resources through the library. One that I think is really neat, it's a database called A to Z World Food. And so when you click it, it'll immediately take you to this database. And what's really neat is that it's looking at food in a global perspective. So how I like to explore recipes is I just click on a region. I'm going to click on France. And it'll tell you information about the national cuisine, regional cuisine, classic dishes, dining etiquette, popular recipes. I'm just going to go to classic dishes in France. And if I wanted to make ratatouille, here they have the ingredients and the directions listed for me. And like we just discussed, you can copy and paste these into your cookbook really easily. And then you can just take this link and put it in the notes to make sure you haven't lost it. But this is a great way to kind of broaden your perspective on foods that you can make. Another fun thing you can do with this database is you can search by ingredient. So let's say you just have so much cilantro, you don't know what to do with that. You can click on cilantro through ingredients on A to Z World Food, and it'll tell you about cilantro, kind of the nutrients, the flavor profile. But if you scroll down, it'll also have dishes that feature cilantro, which cilantro isn't so much, but chicken soup in Rwanda apparently uses a lot of cilantro. So you can browse by ingredients that you have if you're looking to explore new recipes. Another resource that the library has, if you have a library card, is Universal Class. And this has a lot of different classes covering a lot of subjects, but I'm going to focus on the cooking and baking for obvious reasons. We're making a digital cookbook today. And to do that, you select crafts and hobbies in cooking and baking. And you'll see that they have classes on bartending, baking bread, learning about catering, cake decorating. There are so many classes here that you can take if you're looking to kind of develop more skills when it comes to cooking and baking. We also just have our library catalog that has cookbooks that you can browse in print, whatever you have access to with your library card. So this is our online library catalog. I'm just going to look up cookbooks. If you were looking for a more specific type of cookbook, you can add in another descriptor, but this just, I'm going to select books, kind of shows you an overview of the cookbooks that we have here in the library. So that's one way to explore more options for recipes. We also have a digital collection through Hoopla. Again, this will be linked in the slide. You don't have to remember. But this is the National Cookbook Month, which was this past month. And these are all our digital cookbooks that you have full access to with your library card. They're real cookbooks, and you have the full cookbook without ads or anything blocking it. And you can explore different recipes here, and you just check them out online. And you don't have to worry about returning them. When they're due, Hoopla will check them back in for you. Another resource I just like to share, because not a lot of people know about it, is that we have a cake pan library here with TCCL. And so here's just a list. It's unconventional library items because there's some seed items on this list as well. But at the Nathan Hill Library, they host the cake pan library, but you can check it out at any library location. So we have pumpkin-shaped cake pans, Batman-shaped cake pans. So if you're wanting to make a fun cake, but you don't want to invest in the actual cake pan that you probably won't use more than once, you can check it out from the library. And so that's kind of the overview of how to make a digital cookbook. And I would love, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat real quick, and I'll see how I can answer them. It looks like we have one question already. Having Google read text to you. Let me share the screen again, actually. So sorry. I don't use the Google text feature that often, but if I remember correctly, you can do voice to type, which is you speaking so that Google will hear what you're saying and automatically type it. But I think to have it read to you, you'll go to accessibility settings, and you probably have to have an add-on to read it back to you. Are there any other questions or anything? Who's looking forward to making their own cookbook?